Okay, I don't really very often do reviews of books. Let's see if I can get the cover ship. So I'm going to refer to this as Eternidad. Ironically, if you type that name in, you will get a whole bunch of different sort of Hispanic and Spanish books. And this is a very specific one. I will probably butcher that, but I go with Cimmerian Rising. Give that a shot. Now, I'll start off first by talking about the cover art. There's an artist called Kyle Anderson. This is very much indicative of the style that he does things, where you have a much more kind of there's a lot more of the way of use of negative space, but if you get a real good look at this, there's a lot of very intricate line work in some of the negative space. And there's always this definite point towards the way the eyes are done. Eyes went into the soul sort of thing, so the eyes are almost always a lot more elaborate. And basis the way this character is designed, this would actually be the soul collector from this book. Now, this is a very non-linear style of book, which at first made it kind of difficult to read, but by the time I was done, it made it an absolutely immaculate read to go through. The plot, you pretty much have an evil ruler, Mortifer, essentially is his name. The initial first 4 pages go through pretty much his entire backstory, or as much as what's known about him. This is shortly after the time of Christopher Columbus. It's about 100 years afterwards. So lots of people are still doing the seafaring. And this villain has slowly pretty much just engulfed a large portion of South America. And is making his way slightly farther north. And there's a group of seers who have discussed about a prophecy. How a child's going to be born, that child will pretty much be the downfall of this evil empire. Josh mentioned too that the evil empire, essentially their leader is relatively immortal. They do a whole chapter about what he does to essentially keep himself going month after month. And it's very elaborate. I will say one thing, there's a lot of detail in here. Now I'll discuss the non-linear storytelling. You will have a chapter that'll be about Peter. Peter is currently your main male character who's not part of the villain side. And it'll discuss him going out fishing, him visiting a seer and being really freaked out about that, the birth of his child. So there'll be a little sequence of his life. So he's going about his daily life, really not being at all aware that his son is probably the child of prophecy. So he's kind of going through his life, just regular day-to-day sorts of things. So you've got that going on one side. And once you introduce the seers, they actually get some of their own they get chapters themselves towards the end of the book as well. And then there's discussion of the soul collector, who by himself actually gets a couple of his own chapters. So instead of having it be, one chapter, one chapter, one chapter, it's kind of like a bit of his story, a bit of someone else's story, a bit of someone else's story, a bit of someone else's story. So it's constantly showing you that each individual storyline is kind of going on at the same time. So instead of this, and then we went here, and then we did this, it's pretty much, this guy is living his life like a normal person. Doesn't really know that anything really significant is going on. Things are kind of weird, He gets that suspicion later on. Then you have what's going on with the soul collector, who's trying to find out, okay, I have to find these stones, I have to find a priest who can tell us about these tablets, tell us about this prophecy, because my master Mortifer is under the impression that something horrible is going to happen to him. So, this book is very much like a Lord of the Rings style. Like the Fellowship pretty much was setting up the pieces. That's what this one is. And this one does kind of end at a point where it's like, and that's it for this book. So if you like the Lord of the Rings style of books where you can read it and it's enough of a standalone, but there's enough to make you go, well, what's going to happen in the next book? So I guess it'll be coming out in January 2014. But, so you happen to find B. Thomas Harwood, I think you probably find him on Facebook, as well as Kyle Anderson, who did the artwork. See if you actually can find a copy of it. Actually, it's a pretty solid read. It's about 260 pages. I got through it in about a week, and I just read predominantly at night if I'm not playing DDO.